Hey, welcome back. And today what we're going to be talking about accessing resources. And I want to start by telling you a little story. So the story is a strong student and a wise teacher are walking through a beautiful park along a really beautiful path. And that path has random boulders of all different sizes along the path, and sometimes even blocking the path. So as the student's walking along, eventually they come upon a boulder that blocks the path. And the student says to the teacher, "Do you believe I am strong enough to overcome this obstacle?" And the teacher says, "I believe that if you use all your resources, you are strong enough to overcome any obstacle." And the student tries and pushes with all of their might, and sure enough, they're able to roll the obstacle off the path. The student continues with the teacher and they get along for a little while, and then eventually they come across an even larger boulder. Now this boulder is significantly bigger than the first, but not incredibly huge. And the student again says to the teacher, "Do you think I can overcome this obstacle?" And the teacher says, "I believe if you use all your resources, you can overcome any obstacle." And the student says, "Okay," and gives it a try. It starts to try with all of their might and doesn't even get it to budge. So the student looks confused and thinks maybe the teacher was wrong. And then the student kind of thinks, well, I could try something else. The student ends up finding a large stick and then puts the stick underneath the corner of the boulder with another little rock underneath it, and then uses it like a lever, and sure enough is able to get that boulder to roll again. And the student is like, feeling pretty good. So they start going down the path again. And eventually they come across a huge boulder, so big that you can't even see behind the boulder, can't even see the rest of the path. The student says to the teacher, "Do you believe that I can overcome this obstacle?" And the teacher says, "I believe that if you use all your resources, you can overcome any obstacle." And the student tries pushing with all of their might, doesn't budge. The student tries getting a big stick and jamming underneath and using the lever. Same, can't get it to budge. And the student again looks confused as they hold the lever, when suddenly the teacher walks over with another stick and creates a second lever, and with all of their might together, they are able to roll the boulder off the path. And the student says, "Well, isn't it a sign of weakness that I couldn't move the boulder myself?" And the teacher says, "No, it is a sign of strength to use all of your resources. And I say to you, strong student, as a wise teacher, that it is a sign of both strength and wisdom to use your resources." So, just like in the story, in our lives, some obstacles are things that we can move easily, and some of them we're going to need to have a tool to move. Sometimes we don't even have that tool. We need to find that tool and then apply it. And then sometimes the obstacle is going to be so significant that we're going to need to access some outside help in order to move that boulder. So let's talk about this around emotions. That story is kind of like functional and dysfunctional emotions. And what I mean by that is some of our emotions are smaller and they're pretty manageable and they're part of life, and having emotions are a big part of life. Emotions aren't always obstacles. They're often enhancements. They're part of our life. At the same time, sometimes that emotion can get a little bit heavier, right? And it can be a little bit more of a challenge to hold up. And then sometimes that emotion can get so heavy that I can barely support it. So this is the difference between functional and dysfunctional levels of emotion. And what I want you to think about is the same concept as the story on the path. Some you can just manage just naturally by your normal things that you normally do in your day. They're very manageable emotions. Sometimes they're starting to get a little heavy and you might need to use a tool. You might need to walk it out, talk it out, write it out, breathe it out. Or you might need to try some virtual calming strategies, which we're going to put in the link below. But sometimes the emotion is so huge that I need to access resources. I need to get outside help. So, your mental health matters. And mental health is a big issue. And it turns out that the #1 cause of disability in the United States is mental health issues. And what's sad is, even though we have strategies and supports that could help most of these people overcome these issues, less than 50% of the adults that have these issues are actually accessing those supports. And a big part of it is because they believe it is a sign of weakness to get this help, or they don't know how to access this help, or they think there's a stigma to having mental health help. And I just want to say, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. So we're going to point you to a TED Talk. One of my former students did a TED Talk called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." And he tells a little bit about his own story of growth through some of these SEL strategies, but also of his own stumbles and accessing help. So I want you to check that out. And I want you to understand that concept that it's okay to not be okay. And if you find yourself in a place where you or a friend of yours need help, get that help. So that's the idea. So what I want to say to you now is, strong student from a wise teacher. You can overcome any obstacle if you use all your resources. Kid, you'll move mountains. I'll see you in the next video.